Okay, guys, well, we'll make a start. So I guess there's a couple of things we want to go through this afternoon, and I guess it's really just to add clarification based on some themes we've seen coming into both the Kestrel and the migration inbox. So I guess firstly, we'd just like to clarify, who is required to complete the dress rehearsal 2 scripts as a mandatory completion, and then those that are voluntary. So for dress rehearsal 2, as I hope most of this was shared in the webinar that occurred last week, but dress rehearsal 2 test scripts are mandatory for all SIT suppliers, as well as the LDSOs and central services. It is then, however, voluntary for all of the non-SIT suppliers. And with that, looking at some of the test scripts we've already had return, I just wanted to remind everyone that as of now, and I think it was confirmed by the PPC on Monday, that currently we only expect participants to be testing up to test step 4. Test step 5 onwards relating to the DIP execution reporting, so your plan versus actual, the LDSO aggregation, the transaction summary, and so on. This is going to be released in week 2 of dress rehearsal. So as of yet, we are only expecting participants to be able to test up to test step 4, and would like test scripts returned once all of the functionality has been released, and we'll be notifying participants once test scripts 5 onwards are available to be tested. With that as well, just noting that the test scripts were produced and published before the final UI was deployed on last Wednesday, so there are some discrepancy in the naming conventions. So when looking for the baseline schedules, both the forecast and the committed, you'll be looking for sprint 0 tab as opposed to submission sprint. So that will be the sprint tab. And for the LDSO participants, in the test scripts, it refers to an LDSO profile. That tab is actually the participant profile tab instead of LDSO, and it is currently expected that you'll see underneath the LDSO count a banner saying under construction. For now, we're only able to see the contacts. That's an expected fail for now. Just want to clarify as well, because we've seen some test scripts being returned to a number of different inboxes. Once you've completed the test scripts, if you can make sure you're sending that back to the migration inbox. We've had a couple through to the PPC, a couple through to Kestrel, but if you can make sure once you've completed the test scripts, you're returning them to the migration inbox, and we are asking that they are returned by the 29th of August. So what's that? Just over 2 weeks' time. We have also had some last minute user requests come into the inbox to support with dress rehearsal 2. So these are contacts that weren't submitted as part of the PPIR completed ahead of dress rehearsal 2. Now, to ensure that we're able to action these as quickly as possible, we ask that anyone raising the new user request to support with dress rehearsal, the request comes from the principal migration contact. We're only able to add new users if that is coming from the principal contact. I think that's it for the points for clarification we wanted to run through. So I guess I'll open it up to the room if there are any questions. And have we had any in the chat? So on the placing reliance partners, can I just check with you there, Lee? Are you asking, for instance, if you've having a managed service support with your testing, or is that if
Yeah, that's basically it. I don't think that they've been included in any of the Kestrel meetings in the past. So basically, it's up to me to make sure that they're up to speed with all this. Or
yeah, correct. Well, if they're an MWG contact, they sorry, got muted there. Sorry. So they should have been invited to this session if they're an MWG contact. If they're not, please feel forward to forward on the invite if they're going to be taking part dress rehearsal or managing the migration on your behalf if we have them as a migration contact.
Okay, thanks.
No problem. Okay. Any other questions in the room at all? Yeah, Martin.
Hi there. We are a non-sit supplier, and we're part of Wave 3, so we're not actually taking part in Dress Rehearsal 2. But what we would like to get our hands on is some of the example download templates that I'm assuming that people taking part in Dress Rehearsal 2 have got access to. So a daily template for us to provide the committed plan, and the daily baseline schedule that we'll be able to download once that committed plan has been provided. I've sent a request out to the Kestrel query, and I'm looking at Kestrel, and our Sprint 99 page has changed to show us doing a combined plan, which we didn't request to do that. So is that an error? Are we still going to be able to submit a weekly forecast and a daily committed plan separately?
So there was an update that now there'll only be combined schedules for once you're within your committed period to prevent additional work for participants. So for that sprint phase, you'll see it at daily granularity, but then for all future sprints, it will be at that weekly forecast level. So it's now a combined template to have both your daily and forecast to eliminate participants having to complete both separately. Because even if you are, for instance, taking part in sprint 0, we would be requiring a committed schedule for that sprint, but also your forecast values up until your sprint, your migration completion. So that is now a combined schedule for all participants.
So I don't think I understand that. Are we, for sprint 0, are we going to be able to upload a weekly only forecast?
Correct. Yes, you'll only have a combined if you are within your the sprint that you're going to be taking part with for the first time. So it will only be at weekly granularity if you're yet to take part in a sprint. But once you're in a point of active migration, it will be a committed daily granularity for that sprint in question, and then transition to weekly for all subsequent sprints.
Okay, so for us, that'll be sprint 4. So for sprint 0 up to sprint 3, we'll be downloading a template, which is a weekly template, like we did in Dress Rehearsal 1.
Correct.
Then in sprint 4, when we start migrating, we'll be producing what, a combined one?
Correct. So this way you'll only ever be submitting one submission template, as opposed to then having to submit a daily and a weekly so 2 separate documents. So this way it will only be forecast whilst you're not migrating, but as you approach your specific sprint start, it will then become a combined schedule for daily committed values for the sprint you're taking part in, and all subsequent sprints will remain at a weekly forecast granularity.
I see. So in other words, there's no such thing as a daily only committed plan that we upload?
No, correct. Yeah. So it'll no longer be 2 separate documents. They'll be within that one template.
Okay,
unless you've opted into daily only, in which case you would only have a daily template.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, thank you. So can we see? I can download now then the combined plan template from Sprint 99, but how do we get to see a baseline schedule that's committed? What format is that?
So you should be able to see a downloadable form of the aggregate baseline and committed, and the only difference within that is that it would be aggregate values across the full supplier community, as opposed to the values you've submitted within that template. So currently, following submission 2, you'd only be able to see that forecast level, and you'd only then be able to see the committed once you've submitted that daily granularity.
And when we have submitted the committed and we can download it, what is the format of that file? Is it the same as the forecast?
But Kev, can you correct me? I believe that is correct, right? The headers are exactly the same. It'll just difference between if saying committed or forecast.
Because the one that I'm downloading at the moment's only got weeks in it. So you must have a column for days, surely?
Yeah, I think what Joe was saying is that if you look at the aggregate ones, you can see an example of what the aggregate looks like. So you should be able to see an aggregate committed one in there.
Where do I see the aggregate ones?
So it will be under that sprint channel as you drag down. Let me see if I can pull up the test environment just to share. So I'm in currently as a test supplier. Under the active sprint, you'll have 2 separate cards, and within the execute card, you'll be able to download either the national committed or forecast schedule. And then when you come down for your personal view, for whatever you've submitted, you'll get an individual view of both of these schedules. The only difference really between these reports and the ones above is that this is unique to the values you've put in, whilst this is an aggregation of the full supplier community on those given days or weeks.
Okay, so I can't see the execute phase because I'm not part of Dress Rehearsal 2, and I don't have anything in the committed one in the baseline to see that file.
Yeah, so yeah, because the daily granularity wasn't submitted. If you like, Martin, we can pick this up offline, and I think it wouldn't be a problem for us to download these schemas and upload them to the collaboration base and share with the group once they're there.
Or just push that committed schedule download and send me that. Because that's the bit I haven't seen. I've seen the forecast schedule, not the committed schedule.
No, that's fine. I imagine it'll probably be quite similar to other non-SIT suppliers. So that's fine for us to get them uploaded and shared, because as I say, they're synthetic data at the moment anyway.
Thank you.
No problem. Yeah, Alex.
Yeah, hi Joe. Sorry, at the top of the call, you referenced the dates as to when the additional reports will be available for non-SIT. Would you mind repeating that? Sorry.
Was this, sorry, for the DIP reporting itself, the other reports?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because I can only access the baseline.
Yeah, so yeah, for test steps 5
test.
onwards, we're anticipating those reports to be available from next week. Yeah, and we'll be sending a comms out as soon as they're deployed to the environment.
Right. Okay. So they're the ones that we would essentially be able to see an example of MPAN by MPAN initiated versus
no, so you won't see the MCC doesn't track at MPAN level, so you'll be seeing the IF initiations at the 31 to 36.
Oh yeah, the ones that Alf showed. So
yeah,
correct. It's via the DIP that we need to get that MPAN by MPAN one. Is that right? Yeah.
So would you say, was that from the DIP itself? Did you say?
Yeah.
I don't know, Kev.
I think you will be able to get that via the DIP portal, but it's certainly not part of the dress rehearsal. We're just doing aggregate completions, initiations, and completions.
That's fine. Yeah, I had sent a message to the Kestrel migration basket asking about that, but the document they sent back to me I can't get to, but I'll deal with that offline. So, okay, fine. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. Yeah, Minesh.
Yeah, Joe, just piggybacking off what Martin's saying. So the first sprint, when we do our submission, we're going to do that daily because we're joining that sprint so straight on 22nd of October. So the first sprint we're going to do daily, right? In terms of the MPANs. Then while we're in that sprint, when we're doing our next sprint forecast, we're doing it on a weekly basis.
Correct, yeah, unless you've opted into that daily value only, so
Okay.
daily submissions. But yeah,
Okay.
for the point in which, so if you're, for instance, starting in sprint 3, you will only see a weekly forecast for that full period between your sprint start and sprint completion, so migration completion. But in your example, if you're starting in sprint 0, the full period of sprint 0 will be at a daily granularity, and sprint 1 onwards will then be your weekly forecast granularity.
Okay. So we'll have to submit weekly forecast unless we've opted for daily.
Correct, yeah. Though
Okay.
there is one other nuance that, for instance, if your migration start date is very close to the end of a sprint, so say it's a week before sprint completion, you will be required to submit daily granularity for that full supplier ramp-up period. So the supplier ramp-up period is captured in one submission at daily. So for instance, the 4-week period, if you start 2 weeks before completion of sprint 0, you will have daily granularity for that full supplier ramp up. But as you leave sprint 0 and you move into sprint 1 on the submission template, it will still request that you submit it at daily granularity, but it will be a forecast granularity for that daily, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect. Cheers, Joe.
No problem. Right. Any other questions at all? Okay. Well, I think then we can leave it here. But if anyone does have any other questions that crop up after this session, please don't hesitate to drop either Migration or Kestrel an email, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. But thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next week.